As we draw closer to E3 and what I think will be the inevitable reveal for Bethesda Game Studios' new RPG Starfield, more leaks and new news continue to surface around this secret project. As just today there has been a new Reddit post which is a supposed leak that provides a lot of details on exactly what Starfield is, along with information around its reveal and release that very much aligns with my previous predictions. As always when it comes to these supposed leaks, this should be very much taken with a grain of salt. There is absolutely no evidence to support that anything in this Reddit post is true. As a quick refresher in case you're not sure what Starfield is, it is the heavily rumoured new space RPG from Bethesda Game Studios. We know that their next project isn't Elder Scrolls or Fallout related, and we know that the title Starfield has been trademarked by Bethesda for quite some time now. So this quote unquote leak was posted by the Unknown Regions on Reddit, which I will leave in the video's description. This is going to come across as a "my dad works for Bethesda" post, but I won't name my source. You'll see a lot of this is true in May. I'll just get to the content information I know and list in bullet points. Heads at Bethesda have been noticing a rise in science fiction influenced content in the market, not just the video game market, so they're going to make a game of their own in this genre. They've always wanted to do this anyway, even Todd Howard has. They want to get ahead of games like Elite Dangerous and Star Citizen and Beyond Good and Evil 2. They want to bundle a lot of their previous sci-fi ideas into this game. This game is in fact called Starfield. It is more like a space fantasy or opera setting instead of a harder science fiction. It's like Star Wars, so there are fantasy themes in it that have naturally transferred over from their previous work. You can make your own character. The game looks a lot like Fallout 4, but the animations aren't as janky. You can climb on buildings and terrain from a skill even. This game will use cutting edge procedural generation technology. A lot of the game's mechanics rely on it. There are 4 important planets in the game you can travel between in a system. 3 of them have procedurally generated terrain and are fully sized. The other one is a big city planet and has a set map size, maybe around the size of Morrowind's map. On the galaxy map there is a section of the map called the Unknown Regions, where there are endless planets that are generated you can explore. They are fully sized. Planets in themselves have been described as planet-sized dungeons. Content on the planet is procedurally generated as well, like alien species, animals, locations. All of it is generated. You can find things as small as a camp to something the size of a colony or city on the planet's surface. City as in Skyrim-sized city. There is a unique mechanic in the exploration side of the gameplay. If you discover a sapient alien species and catalogue it and successfully return the information to normal space, the 4-system starting area, you unlock that species as playable for future characters. Your character is silent and the character is not anyone special. You choose what planet you want to start the game on. You can choose a random planet which will spawn you on a generated planet in the unknown. There are a lot of ships to buy, probably around 30. They can be from the size of an X-Wing to an Imperial light cruiser. You can have a small crew. I don't know the mechanics for this. Combat is really similar to Fallout 4, but with cover mechanics. There are infinite weapons comparable to Borderlands' system of guns. There are melee weapons too. The settlement system is expanded. You can establish colonies on an empty plot of land on any planet. You can establish colonies in the unknown planets and populate them for income. There are some ground vehicles like speeders and some transports, but nothing too large. There is nothing bigger than a garbage truck. There are factions, but even they can be procedurally generated because of the Unknown Region mechanic and what you can find in that area. You can also make your own faction. You can't join every faction, but you can be in multiple at once. That's all I know. A trailer is supposed to come in late May, and they will show more gameplay at E3, showing a lot of this. The game isn't fully polished yet. That is by far the most detailed leak or information we've ever seen on Starfield. Like I mentioned, there's absolutely no validity to any of this. There's no proof, so take it with a grain of salt, but for me personally, everything I read absolutely seems plausible. And I actually do think that there is a decent chance this could be true. There is no information in here that seems totally wild and out there and makes no sense for Bethesda Game Studios. Everything mentioned, I think, seems relatively realistic to what we know Bethesda Game Studios can do. I want to touch on the fact that the poster said that the trailer will come out in late May, and then we'll see more information at E3. I've previously speculated on the channel that that will probably occur with Starfield because it very much aligns with what happened with Fallout 4's reveal in 2015. There was a trailer about a month or so before E3, and then we got the info blowout at E3 itself. I thought that was going to happen with Starfield as well, and if this leak is true, then it appears that is correct. However, that conclusion is not very hard to jump to, as it very much just, as I mentioned, mentioned, follows that Fallout 4 pattern, so I wouldn't be surprised also if the person making this post was literally just making everything up, because quite frankly, if a dumbass like me can come up with that theory for Starfield's reveal, it wouldn't be too hard for someone else to also come to that idea, because it is a very safe prediction to assume that that is how Bethesda would reveal their next game. This information reveals that there is a huge emphasis in Starfield on procedural generation technology. We've heard that Bethesda Game Studios have been wanting to invest more into procedurally generated technology like we saw in Skyrim and Fallout 4 with Radiant quests. Except this time they seem to be going all out on this, as it seems a lot more of the game will be focused around this particular technology. In their previous games it was just quests, but now it seems entire locations, weapons, factions, etc. are going to be procedurally generated, which is a huge step. I think it'll just end up depending on how that particular mechanic is executed in the game. I personally have no love for Radiant quests in my single player RPGs, particularly in Fallout 4 and Skyrim, and I think everyone can universally agree that those were very badly implemented into the game. So if this kind of procedural generation is going to look more like that Fallout 4 style of implementation for procedural generation, then I really don't want to see any of this in the game, and it would be incredibly disappointing. However, if they take a different approach to it, and it's not frustrating, and it doesn't feel like we're doing the same stuff over and over again, then I'd be okay with that. I think it's expected that the combat would be similar to Fallout 4, a sci-fi setting would most align with Fallout 4 in terms of Bethesda's previous projects, especially if it's going to be heavily focused on shooting mechanics, then it definitely makes sense that they'd take what they've learned from Fallout and implement that here as well, which is great because I think Fallout 4 had excellent shooting mechanics. In terms of the graphics looking like Fallout 4, I know when the reveal probably takes place very soon, people are going to be incredibly disappointed by that. I can see it already. The graphics hate was strong with Fallout 4 in 2015, and it is now 2018, games are looking better than ever naturally, and I can see a lot of hate coming at this game when it's announced if it does look like Fallout 4. I personally, honestly don't give a crap. I thought Fallout 4 obviously didn't look very impressive, but I thought it looked fine. I'm really not playing my Bethesda Game Studios games, or really any RPG at all for that matter, for incredible graphical fidelity or anything like that. So it doesn't bother me, but if it looks similar to Fallout 4, I know it's going to bother a lot of people, which won't be good for the game when it's revealed. The other major thing is the emphasis on vehicles and even perhaps starships and things like that. I think that could be pretty interesting and fun to see how Bethesda tackles that. Part of me can't help but just assume it's going to end up being really buggy and kind of janky and not controlled really well. But hey, I'm going to try and remain optimistic about it. If they execute vehicles well and they're fun to control and they're fun to navigate and explore with, then I'm totally down for it. I'm just skeptical on whether or not they'll be able to be implemented and be fun. There's just been so much speculation about this game and lots of different ranks and lots of different leaks from lots of different sources and things like that, that for me personally, I will find it hard to believe at this point that Starfield isn't real in some form. But for one final time, I'll make it very clear, take this with a grain of salt. By no means assume that any of this is true information whatsoever. So as always, please leave your thoughts on this topic in the comment section down below. This has been SirCazz, please do take care and farewell.